strengths.
A friend of mine taught, or still teaches, not first grade, kindergarten in West Haven. And a couple of years ago, she brought me a memo that was given to her years and years ago. Directive, the primary reason children are in kindergarten is social. That has changed dramatically. The first grade curriculum has been brought down to kindergarten. A lot of components of it. So everybody is in the process of learning in the state of how things are going to be handled.
There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure on teachers, there's a lot of pressure on kids, and there's a lot of pressure on parents now. Right? And I kind of liken it to a pile driver. Driving down, and as Jen said, we want high expectations, but we want to help children meet those high expectations in a developmentally appropriate way that gives them room to mature at their rate.
You're involved with the Ziegler Institute, and I also had talked with and had a guest on the show, Dr. Marcy Gademi, developmentally appropriate.
Gazelle.
Yes, absolutely phenomenal. And I think there's more knowledge out there that just because you're X age, you can do X, and that's just not true. You want to be the best you can be, but it has to be developmentally appropriate. We were also talking about some resources that you need, that teachers need, and that parents need. Can you just go into that a little bit? What kind of resources can you provide? I'm not sure who wants to take that. Kate?
Well, there's information. Part of what we do through Success by Six, and I'm sure the BECC is interested in doing too, is making sure that parents do have information about what they can do kind of in those everyday moments to support their children's growth and development. And you asked earlier too, like, what can community members do? And Kate gave some great examples of ways that they can give information and they can be advocates and champions for young children. I think reading to a child, holding a child on your lap,
cuddle time.
You cannot underestimate the importance of relationships. I think lots of times when people think about readiness, they think about ABCs. They might think about flashcards. It's not really about that.
It's really socio-emotional.
It's about relationships and knowing that you have people around you who care about you and want the best for you. And I think even if a child's not related to you, you're a neighbor, you're down the street, kids from the local school, you can be that presence in their life, whether you see them on a daily basis or not.
Some of the most interesting and warm experiences that I've had is when I'm either reading to children or doing storytelling, and they sort of start out where you are, but then by the end, it's like they've morphed on top of you.
One of my fondest memories was I taught preschool for 2 years in Brantford at the Children's Garden, which is now the Curigan Field, unfortunately. But my favorite time was the end of the day when we were doing kind of aftercare. And we would just sit around and read, and I would have, the little kids on my lap, and that's really what it's all about. And a secure child, a child who's secure in those relationships, is going to be a curious, active learner. And it's very important that children have books. So if people are looking for something else to do, making books available. One way that people could do that would be to support the Community Dining Rooms Initiative. They have family dinner nights, and they have a story time at least once a week after the dinner.
That's nice.
And at that point, they also make sure that every child goes home with a book. So if you have extra books around, many of us do, please donate them to the community dining rooms so that we can make sure that all children, all families, are going home with books.
Another fabulous Brantford resource is Read to Grow.
Yes.
Our school has been the school I previously taught in before I retired. Savin Rock and West Haven, they've been wonderful donators of books to our children, and people need to know that these are books that are loved and books that children take and they gravitate to, and things that they finished with that if they're just in your house, please bring them along.
Well, and this actually brings up another point about the Early Childhood Collaborative. We are strategically partnered with many organizations already in town. The Community Dining Room being one of them, Read to Grow is another one. The school district, the Brantford Recreation Department, the East Shore Health Department, the Food Allergy Education Network. So we're working with existing organizations.
And these are wonderful in the community.
Right.
Yes.
The Brantford Early Childhood Collaborative isn't going to be in the business of providing services. We want to bring people together to make sure that we are coordinating services, that we're optimizing efficiencies so that we can meet this goal of making sure that all kids are happy.
That's a good distinction that you just made, that you're not providing, but you're bringing everybody together. And the organizations that you just mentioned, that's where people can be directed to if they need help. I just wanted to mention that you did a survey on some people, of parents and people, and what really surprised me, one of your answers were that parents wanted more sidewalks. Now, I don't think I ever would have come up with that. How did that come about? Why a sidewalk?
Well, it's so interesting. So the survey is still in process. So as I mentioned, if you go to our website, you can still complete the survey. We presented a preliminary report of the findings that we had thus far just a little while ago, a few weeks ago, at a community meeting that we held at the Congregational Church. And it's interesting, when you ask people these questions, what's working in Brantford for children and young families, what are the areas of need, how can we improve things, you find out some unexpected things sometimes. And the sidewalk issue was one that I hadn't anticipated. I don't think very many of us had, because where I live, we have great sidewalks. Downtown, around the green, we have wonderful sidewalks, but apparently there are many areas of town, particularly where people are relying on pedestrian transportation to get where they need to go with their kids, where they don't have consistent access to safe sidewalks. So imagine, for example, if you were a mother who were trying to push your child in a stroller, and maybe you also had a toddler who you had to be mindful of, right? And you were trying to get from, let's say, Brantford Hill, the condos from Brantford Hill, down to the library. If we can all just kind of do the mental experiment of putting ourselves there, you can imagine that there are places where there are sidewalks, but there are also places where there aren't sidewalks, and you have to navigate that kind of obstacle field to get where you need to go.
With a toddler, that's really, really hard. And maybe a mom could do it with just a carriage, but if you're trying to bring the kids around, and that's a very, very, very interesting, astute observation.
So this is a mother who knows that she wants to go to the library, to go to the Great Story Hour with Miss Mary, right? Or she wants to go to the rec department to go to some of the great early childhood programs, right? Or the community dining room. So she knows where she wants to go to do what she knows is good to do for her children, and simply physically getting there becomes an obstacle course, and a scary one sometimes.
Well, that is really a good point. Were there other surprises, or was that the one that kind of comes to mind?
That was surprising. See, some of the other things that we learned.
Well, you mentioned the obesity issue.
Yeah, and that we didn't actually learn about the obesity issue. But one of the things that was interesting and not surprising to some of us, but surprising to many, was that we have our children in Brantford are not scoring very well on the physical education test.
And that does surprise me, actually.
That's the fourth. And I mean, I always thought of Brantford as we've got a really heavy-duty, active sports community. We have wonderful sports teams, both in the schools and through the rec department.
Great rec department.
And so I was very surprised that we are scoring as low as that our children are scoring as low on the fourth grade physical fitness test as they are, and that also our children aren't getting as much PE as is recommended by the state. Now, I want to give the superintendent and the Board of Education tremendous credit, because they are, once they found out about that, they're working to remedy that, and so they've restored, for example, the full-time PE teacher at Sliney School, and are working to try to increase the number of physical education hours that the children will have. But it's not all at the schools. And so one of the other points about this initiative, this early childhood planning initiative, is that we're not looking to the schools to fix everything. Right? So that's one piece. But another piece is, how do we get our children outside and more active? We have wonderful parks. We have an incredible set of trails in this, through the land trust. We have wonderful natural resources. How do we leverage that? We have a terrific new YMCA. We have a great rec center. We've got free swimming at Walsh Intermediate School. How do we leverage that so that we can get our kids more active, so that they're actually doing better and they're healthier?
I agree with all the comments that you just made. We're almost out of time, and I want to make sure I ask Jennifer this question. Why should senior citizens care? Why should you raise our taxes for the children? I've been there, done that. Why should seniors care?
Well, I think one answer to that is one that it might sound somewhat self-interested, but that's okay, because I think people, that's okay for them to view that it needs to be important to them, which is the children of today, the young children that we're talking about, they are going to be our workforce for tomorrow. And if we hope to have access to Social Security and to health insurance once we're retired, we need young, vibrant, smart, well-educated workers who can pay into that system, whatever that system might look like going forward. And so it's really in our own self-interest to have the next generation coming up very well prepared for all of the exciting kind of knowledge jobs that are really going to be the jobs of our future. And then I think also from a moral perspective, you know, people should want the best for their neighbors, understanding that what they do for someone else is going to improve the lives of the entire community, and it will reflect back on them in terms of improving their life as well.
When I hear that question asked in other venues, one thought always comes to my mind is, well, someone did it for us. Right. You know, it's not like we're the first generation of senior citizens to have been there.
Could I just add one thing there? So I agree with everything that Jen just said, and also I think it's very important to remember that early childhood is an investment. So there is a strong economic argument for early childhood. There's a moral argument, but there's also a very strong economic argument, and it goes like this. We know, because James Heckman and other Nobel laureate in economics and others have costed it out, for every dollar that you put into...
We have about one more minute.
Every dollar that you put into good quality early education, you return about $7 on that investment. And so I'd like people to think about this as an economic development plan for Brantford, because Brantford will be as strong as its children will be. We want Brantford to become an even more attractive place for people to move with families, right, and to pay taxes.
Well, that is a good point, and also to bring up to your point that this is not just in Brantford, but there are other communities, so it's not just localized, but I would say
throughout the region and really the state.
And actually, I would say the country, if you really want to go up. If you'd like some more information, I'd like you to go to www.brantfordbecc.org. If you don't remember that, you can always contact me at jmdteach@comcast.net, or you can go to my website, www.classroomconnections365.com. I want to thank you so much for coming. We're planning a series of 3 more of these at least to continue with other aspects. And Jennifer, it was a delight having you on the show.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
And I hope I see you again under other circumstances.
That would be great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jen.